Okay, let's start. This is Harneet from Preseem. Thank you everyone for joining today. I will be responsible for just sharing some basic housekeeping rules, introducing our host today, as well as managing the question and answers round at the end. I want to start off by introducing the Director of Client Relations for WISP.net, that is Dave Thomas. Dave has been in the technology and the ISP billing industry for about 25 years now. In my conversations with him, it's clear that Dave has expert knowledge of proven business principles that drive growth, and that's what he's going to share with you today. Without further ado, here's Dave. Dave, over to you now.
Thanks for the introduction, Harneet. Hi, everyone. Glad you could all make it to the session. So here's a meaningful stat that's directly connected to you in today's topic. 48% of customers tell others about their good customer service experience. Referred customers have a 16% higher lifetime value than a non-referred customer. So I hope nobody on this call was hoping to hear a sales pitch about a WISP billing system, because that's not what we're going to share with you today. We can do that at another time. The goal for today is to share a business principle on the only 3 ways to grow your business and some statistics on retention that you can take back to your company and use to make more money no matter what billing system you use. But first, I do have to do my job and give some background on VISP.net. Most of you are probably already aware of VISP.net and the billing system, but for those of you that don't, VISP is a cloud-based billing and automation provider with over 25 years in the ISP industry. You think about what that means. We've been in a business environment that has changed 5 times, from 24 baud dial-up connections to connect to the old DOS-based bulletin boards, the introduction of HTML and the race to faster speeds like 56K V.92 dial-up, then the jump to DSL, the jump to cable. Then came the end of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and the start of the telco dirty tricks to steal subscribers, and yet we made another jump to serve wireless and fiber providers. So VISP has weathered through quite a few turbulent storms in the market and managed to keep the ship upright. VISP is a privately held debt-free company with a large staff of over 30 developers, testers, and client support team members. They have one sales guy, and of course that's me. I also oversee support and training for all the teams on customer service. So what keeps a business relevant for 25 years and counting through a rapidly changing market like telecommunications? Its ability to understand and implement the right business principles. So Stephen R. Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, has one of the best examples to teach the definition of a principle and make it stick with you. So I'm going to quote this from his book. If you've read it, then this is just going to be a refresher. So 2 battleships assigned to a training squadron had been at sea on maneuvers in heavy weather for several days. I was serving on the lead battleship and was on watch on the bridge as night fell. The visibility was poor with patchy fog, so the captain remained on the bridge, keeping an eye on all activities. Shortly after dark, the lookout on the wing of the bridge reported, "Light bearing on the starboard bow." "Is it steady or moving astern?" the captain called out. The lookout replied, "Steady, Captain," which meant we were on a dangerous collision course with that ship. The captain then called to the signalman, "Signal that ship, we are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees. Back came the signal, "Advisable for you to change course 20 degrees. The captain said, "Send, I'm a captain, change course 20 degrees. "I'm a seaman, second class," came the reply. "You'd better change course 20 degrees. By this time, the captain was furious and he spat out, "Send, I'm a battleship, change course 20 degrees. Back came the flashing light, "I'm a lighthouse." We changed course. You see, principles are like lighthouses. You can sail your ship to any coast and you can see the lighthouse in the distance. The lighthouse doesn't move. You can't go through it. You can only break yourself against the rocks or heed the warning and move around. That's what a principle is, a guiding light that's unmovable and keeps you from destruction. The only 3 ways to grow is the light that shows you the safe harbor of growth. I know there are a couple groans in the audience, but honestly, the only 3 ways to grow shows you how to be successful without the fear of failure. Most people, including me, think that growing a business is a complex, giant burden of thousands of possible tactics that you can try. And this principle takes the complexity out and makes it simple. Just think of all your marketing and business activities as falling into one of these 3 categories that I'm about to share with you. So what are the only 3 ways to grow? Well, business guru Jay Abraham first published the principle in his book, Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got, 21 Ways to Outthink and Outperform Your Competition and Out-Earn Your Competition. Some of you may have read the book and remember this section. This is quoted from his book. There are only 3 ways to increase your business. Increase the number of clients, get more prospects into paying customers, increase the average transaction, get each client to buy more at each purchase, increase the frequency that the average client buys from you. You want to get each customer to buy from you more often. So how does this apply to the WISP world? Well, you get more subscribers, you get subscribers to buy more services, and you get subscribers to stay longer. This might seem obvious, and you might think that there's more to it, but there really isn't. It is this simple and easy to understand. So most WISPs don't have a problem getting more subscribers, and many of you are adding services to increase revenue. But how many of you are really focused on retention? I mean, really. We all think about it, but how many of you are really focused on it and invest in it? So let's take a look at some of the reasons why retention is so important. A small 5% increase in retention increases profit up to 95%. How much more successful would you be with 95% more profit? Just to be clear, we're talking about profit here, not revenue. This leads to the next statistic. There's a 92% retention among companies with well-crafted customer service. If you had this kind of retention, how could any competitor get a foothold in your service area? As you know, great customer service doesn't just happen. You have to hire and train the best people and give them the tools to see information and correct situations for your subscribers. They and your technicians and your network administrators have to be responsive and focused on giving your customers the best experience for you to be successful. So here's one final stat to drive home the importance of retention. On average, loyal customers are worth up to 10 times as much as their first purchase. So this is how I arrived at the value of a subscriber. Most WISPs have install fees, and all of you have monthly fees. So if we calculate based on the first year of service at $80 a month without the install fee, and we multiply that by 10 years, the subscribers are worth $9,600 each. Now, if you start looking at your subscribers as much more than $80 a month, they're actually worth up to 10 grand to your business. You'll begin to see their real value. Now, if you remember back to the first stat we talked about, the subscribers who are referred to your organization are worth up to 16% more. That's over 11 grand. Make sure all your staff see them and appreciate them this way too, and you're on your way to success. In fact, the vendors you choose should create systems that are aligned with proven growth principles, like the only 3 ways to grow and other business principles that help you retain subscribers and support your growth. There are many business principles that VISP.net follows, and if you want to see how the only 3 ways to grow and other business principles are built into VISP.net's ultimate back office billing and automation system, reach out to me after this webinar. So what does VISP do for retention? Glad you asked. Your company, and more specific, your billing and admin people, have a live connection and open communication with the VISP success team and easy access to the CEO and developers. And to enhance this real-time communication for instant communication, you'll also find weekly CEO roundtable meetings that give your WISP a voice in the development process and creates a synergy between your people that use the program and the developers who create and code the platform. When your WISP attends a CEO meeting and has a great idea for a feature, a specification document is created and shared with your WISP and others that want the same feature. You all have 24-hour access to review the doc and provide suggestions and feedback that go directly to the developers who are working on the project. That's lean development. And then finally, a support team that's so responsive, you'll swear they're on your staff and in your back room. All of this focus on your WISP business drives the development of the features you use in Ultimate Back Office Billing and Automation System, also called UBO. You will always have a human element to billing. Not all things can be automated, but you can automate many of the tasks and steps that are done each day and month to manage your accounts and your payments. You will find the time you free up can be better invested on your retention. With UBO, it's easy to navigate your data. It takes just a few clicks to get to customer history, connection status, amount due, assigned asset, contact, and much more. You will find the system to be well designed and intuitive for fast, accurate customer service. Your team can get to a resolve fast and keep your subscribers happy so they stay your customer for a long time. You may be thinking, I can't afford to hire more people to do support. So VISP has you covered there too with hyper-radius payment enforcement. This is a built-in solution that's fast, redundant, and scalable that gets you paid. So you have the cash flow to double down on your retention strategy, but that's another webinar. So when you combine Preseem with VISP.net's UBO, you end up with a principle-based tools that are lean, well-crafted for customer support and your success. This is how quality of service or experience translates into growth. So Preseem enhances your ability to deliver a quality service, and this has a direct impact on your retention and referrals. Preseem is lean because it's actively managing your network traffic on the fly with very little interaction once configured. And then finally, the Preseem team understands the value of retention, so you will experience excellent support. So now here's Garrett with Preseem with technical information on the platform and the integration with UBO. Garrett?
Thank you so much, Dave, for that background. I love hearing about all the business aspects behind all this stuff. Obviously, that's what it's about at the end of the day. Certainly, one thing that we've been finding as you're working with, especially our longer customers that have had a chance to measure churn and things like that, is there's a very direct link between improving quality of experience and reducing churn. That's one of the big things that we found, and there's all kinds of other benefits as well. But I'll speak a little bit about that as a little case study we've been working on. I'll share some numbers on that. From there, I'll go into quality of experience, what it means, how to measure it, why some other tools don't really give a good idea. And I'll talk about Preseem's take in it. This isn't meant to be a comprehensive Preseem walkthrough or demo or anything like that. For that, just book a meeting with us. I'm happy to spend a bunch of one-on-one time with you. But this really try and give you a sense of high level what Preseem can do for you and how it can help your bottom line. And then I'll finish up talking about the optimization side. And last, but definitely not least, the integration of Preseem and VISP.net, which has gone really smooth and makes for a super easy deployment. So this first chart here is from one of our first customers. They're Evergent, based in Wisconsin. They have about 3,000 subscribers. And so let me explain this chart on the left. So you can see the gray bars, which is the legend on the left, shows you the average monthly churn for every quarter. So this ranges from about 0.6 to almost 1.5%. And so basically every month they were losing about that many customers. The orange line tells you how many subscribers they lost in a given quarter, the blue how many they gained. And so you can see in 2016, the left part, they were actually losing customers faster than they were adding, which is obviously hurts a lot. So as they were tracking these metrics, they really started paying attention to it and started figuring out ways to improve it. And so towards the end of 2016, 2017, they did some network upgrades, tried to do various things to get the experience better, but they were still struggling with it. They kept having the churn and new customers be pretty close to each other. This was right around the time we introduced Preseem as well, and we started working with them. In Q2 2017, we started monitoring the network. Q3, all the optimization got turned on. And of course, after the monitoring, they were able to figure out exactly which parts of their network were not delivering a good service, a good quality of experience to their customers, and were causing them most of their churn. And the optimization delivered a much better experience when people were hitting their plan speed. And so as you can see, the last 3 quarters, the churn has come way down by about 0.4% per month. And now they're actually starting to grow quite quickly again. This blue and the orange lines have really come apart, which is awesome. And so 0.4% might not sound like much, but on 3,000 subscribers, that meant that every month they were losing 12 fewer subscribers than they used to. At $80 a piece, that's almost $1,000 in extra revenue the first month, $2,000 the second, $3,000 the third, and so on. So if you compound that in the first year, that's $75,000 in additional revenue they were getting, they wouldn't have had without the focus on quality of experience. And it just keeps growing from there. So one of the big questions, of course, is how do you measure quality of experience? How do you know if your network is delivering a good experience to your customers or not? What tools can you use? And so things that we often see before we come along is based on customer complaints and anecdotes. The trick with that is it's often too late. It's really hard to correlate it to a root cause. And also many of your customers will simply never call. They will think to themselves, oh, this, I've got a bad experience again. It's, it's slow in the evening, that kind of thing. They'll leave bad reviews or go to a competitor, and these are your churn risks, of course. Traditional network monitoring tools, so think SNMP and ICMP-based tools, they do a good job telling you if the network is up, like is traffic flowing and your network elements up and running. But just because an access point is up doesn't mean all is well and it's actually delivering good service. Every sector, every subscriber is unique. You've got different interference, different landscapes for every access point, different usage patterns per subscriber. So relying on rules of thumbs like, oh, you can put 25 subs on an AC Prism, you can't really do that either, because in many cases it won't be quite right. And also there's the bandwidth management tools, things like bandwidth shapers, plan enforcement. These actually often make it worse when you really dig into it. And so it's important to look at the whole picture and see where your problem areas are and address those. So a big thing for Preseem is if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. The first thing we actually built was the monitoring and measuring side before we even got into optimization, or we've had both for quite a while now. And really, when you think about quality of experience, one way to think about it is it exposes the points between up and down. Something isn't just up or down, there's a big grayscale in between of how good of an experience it's actually delivering. And so most people look at pure bandwidth. Well, bandwidth is important. You need a minimum amount to deliver good service, of course, but it isn't nearly enough. And what we actually find is that applications like browsing, gaming, VoIP, Facebook, all those things are much more sensitive to things like latency, jitter, and packet loss. And those things actually play a bigger role than pure bandwidth alone. And so any kind of QoE monitoring you do has to take all of those into effect. And specifically, it can't use this ICMP for latency because it measures a very different thing. It measures a best optimal latency to individual network elements, for example, but it gets prioritized higher, lower, but differently than your customer's traffic, and doesn't actually tell you if it's delivering good quality of experience or not. So it's important to look at all of that. Okay, so from here on, I'll go into a little bit of Preseem's take on QoE monitoring and some of the things that it does. So we're deployed in just about 100 networks now. WISPs is all we do, so we have a lot of experience with all kinds of equipment, Ubiquiti, Cambium, base cells, Telrad, you name it. We've seen a bunch of it and learned the ins and outs of it. The kind of issues we often find, they often result in higher latency, packet loss, that kind of thing. So by looking at those metrics at different parts of your network, we can see exactly where the problem areas are. Typical things we see are on the backhaul or congestion, interference, misalignment, knocking out a bunch of sectors. For your access points, congestion and network load, reduced capacity to interference, those will have a major impact as well. We've even seen software issues, bugs on various access points, delivering a poor experience. And it's, again, the only way to see that is to actually see what's happening with your customer's traffic from their experience. Then for subscribers, you've got poor signal strength to the sub, in-home Wi-Fi. Being able to tell those apart is quite useful when a customer calls in saying the internet is slow. Being able to tell, is it in their home? Is it a signal strength issue? Is the whole access point affected? By looking at the quality of experience metrics, you can tell all those things fairly quickly. Even on the shaper side, we often find misconfigured shapers, people that have, for example, old remnants around in radio still didn't know they had. All those things stand out like a sore thumb when you start monitoring based on quality of experience. This is one of the screenshots we have in Preseem. Again, this is not meant to be a detailed walkthrough or anything, but what this does, this particular screen, it shows you the status of all your access points, so green, yellow, red. You very quickly know on your network map where your problem areas are. This particular screen is based on a one-day calculation. It automatically figures out the peak hours within that, calculates the average latency for all the subscribers, packet loss, and throughput. And the idea behind this screen is this helps you, A, figure out where the issues are, and B, prioritize them very quickly as well, based on how bad it is, for how long, how many subscribers it's affecting. But just as importantly, this tells you where everything is good and you don't need to worry about or spend money upgrading it. So not only does this help you troubleshoot where the problems are, it helps you plan your investment dollars as well in where they're actually required. This chart shows the difference in looking at the round trip time latency that Preseem is based on versus ICMP. And so a little bit about the round trip time, or RTT. the latency that Preseem measures, Preseem is an inline device. All your network's traffic, all your customers' traffic goes through it. And it basically calculates the latency from a packet as it goes through a Preseem box, through your backhauls, access point, into the home end user device, like a laptop, iPad, whatever. TCP sends an acknowledgement back, the acknowledgement comes back. That's one round trip time. And then we measure that many, many times for every subscriber, log it to the cloud every 10 seconds, and then aggregate it up into a sector and tower level. And so you can see on the top right, this is one access point, all the different numbers and colors of different subscribers on here. And you can see in the evening hours, all the latencies are quite high. And that's simply the access point is congested, more data is coming in than it's able to transmit, it's holding on to those packets and adding latency. And it is that which often causes the slow internet complaints. Browsing becomes sluggish, gaming doesn't work well anymore. But if you compare that to ICMP, for example, ICMP to the access point is just fine. It's showing like 3 milliseconds. Even to the CPE, which is going through the access point to the radio, is showing very low values. And again, that's because ICMP often gets prioritized and is not reflective of what's actually happening to your customer's traffic. And that's really one of the most important reasons to monitor QoE, not just network elements. Okay, from here, I'll talk a little bit about the optimization side as well. And really, Preseem is about two things: telling you where your problem areas are based on monitoring QoE, and then optimizing it. So this is what a simple shaper looks like. So simple shapers, think shapers on your CPEs or a MikroTik simple queue. These are often used to enforce the plan speed. So if you have a 5 megabit plan, you use a shaper to make sure it stays at 5 megabit. Now, the trick with simple shapers is that the experience goes downhill fast when they hit their plan speed. And so if you look at the left side of this, for example, you can see this particular subscriber has a 3 megabit plan. And the way the shaper works is you've got data coming in, then a buffer which can hold on to packets for a while, and then it transmits at a fixed rate like 3 megabits. And the trick is when more data is coming in than it's allowed to transmit, that buffer fills up. And it is that buffer filling up that causes a lot of quality of experience problems for your customers. And those are the calls of, oh, my internet is slow, and it turns out they're doing a Windows 10 upgrade or something like that. It doesn't actually have to cause any problems if you use the right tools for that. And so what you can see here, when you hit the 3 megabit plan, it's showing 200 milliseconds latency for that traffic. Now, if it's a download causing that to happen, the download's probably fine. It isn't interactive. A bit of latency doesn't really matter. But now that you filled that buffer up, if you're trying to do anything else like gaming, VoIP, browsing, all those packets sit behind that same buffer and also get slowed down. So every time you refresh the web page, load a new page, every back and forth has to wait like 200 milliseconds to get through that buffer. Gaming becomes laggy. VoIP doesn't work well anymore. It's all because it is latency. It's not so much the bandwidth that's the problem here. They fight a little bit, but it's this latency which causes the main issue. And so the beauty of this is recent standards have been developed which actually solve this problem without any complexity of deep packet inspection or anything like that. And so I'll talk about that here. Preseem actually uses something called FQCaudal. Feel free to Google it. We didn't invent this. We really like it. We've gotten awesome feedback from our customers as well. In a nutshell, what it does, there's two parts to it. The caudal is active queue management. The FQ is flow queuing. What active queue management does is rather than introduce a fixed amount of latency, a fixed buffer size, it targets a latency of under 10 milliseconds. If a packet's been there for longer than 10 milliseconds, it starts applying back pressure or drops it if it has to, whatever it needs to do to keep that connection in good shape. And what it results in is a way lower latency when the bandwidth limit is hit than with simple shapers. Now, the other part that works in conjunction with is the flow queuing. So the way this works is it automatically classifies flows into either bulk flows or interactive flows. And it does this purely based on the amount of bandwidth that particular flow is transferring. If it's something big, like streaming video, it's considered bulk. If it's something small, like gaming, VoIP, browsing, it's considered interactive. Now, any of the interactive flows get priority. They don't get queued at all. They go straight through. So no matter how busy that link is, if somebody has a 5 meg link and is completely maxed out, gaming and browsing works just like nothing else is happening at all. Now, any remaining bandwidth after that, which is most typically, now gets allocated fairly between the bulk flows. Each bulk flow or application gets its own queue associated with it. And so if you have, for example, Netflix and a video conferencing, both of us will get half of it. They'll still have nice and low latency. The video conferencing will work just fine, but it contains the bandwidth for each flow very nicely, and it ensures it keeps a good experience by keeping the latency low. This is critical. The whole concept of buffer bloat, which there's lots of research on it as well, you really want to avoid that and get things out of your network as quickly as possible. And again, FQCODL does a great job on this. The other nice thing about the FQCODL is there's no configuration required. There's no manual rules of how much to allocate for VoIP or streaming video, which is almost impossible to get right and harder to do with encryption. This, again, simply figures it out automatically based on how busy that flow is and how much traffic is going through. And when you have Preseem integrated with VISP.net, it's that simple. VISP has all the plan speeds, IP addresses, subscriber information. Preseem extracts all of that, and it just works. I'll move on to the integration slide next. So when you look at the high-level network diagram, Preseem runs on an inline server in your network. We have appliances. You can provide your own hardware. It doesn't really matter. But one way or another, all your customers' traffic goes through it. It measures all those QoE metrics like TCP round trip time unmeasured, TCP retransmissions, which looks for packet loss and packet ordering issues. And it logs all that to the cloud for every IP address every 10 seconds. But then with the integration with VISP, we now know what IP addresses belong to what subscribers. So now you can look up subscriber Joe, are they getting a good experience or not? And we also get the plan speeds. With those plan speeds, it's simply a matter of turning the optimizers on or off, and they start doing their thing, which is very simple. The other nice thing about VISP, it has an inventory module where you can list all your access points. And so Preseem automatically extracts all of those, connects to each one, typically through SNMP, and figures out exactly what subscribers are on what access point. And it is that mapping which lets us aggregate those QoE stats on a per subscriber basis up to a sector level and a tower level. And now that wired summary I showed before, that's how that gets done. We know exactly what subscribers are in what sector and which ones are delivering a good service or a bad service. And again, lots more details behind the scenes. If you want to learn more about this, feel free to book a call with one of us, and happy to give one-on-one demos, whatever you need. So in summary, especially based on our first set of customers, which now have enough data to see the impact of the QoE monitoring and optimization, there's a direct link between improving quality of experience and decreasing your monthly churn. If you have 1,000 subscribers, reducing at 0.4%, that saves you an extra 4 subscribers every month. These subscribers you don't have to install again. There's no marketing required for them. You just keep them. Very quickly adds up to $25,000 in the first year, and it keeps growing from there. And I guess if I wanted to summarize this whole presentation or the Preseem part of it into the top 3 things you can do to improve quality of experience. Number 1, implement QoE-based monitoring and fix any network issues that are found. Number 2, replace your simple bandwidth shapers with a QoE-optimized plan enforcement, which delivers a much better experience when your customer hits their plan speed. And third, if there's any areas that you can't fix, access points that you can't upgrade, just too much interference, whatever it is, at least make sure you put some kind of optimized shaper on that link, rather than letting the access point handle it itself and adding a whole bunch of latency, making all those interactive applications like gaming, VoIP, and browsing feel very slow. At least it solves that. Even though they can't get their full bandwidth, at least the internet will feel fast from a latency perspective. Okay, so that's all I had for the Preseem presentation part of the webinar. At this point, we'll hand it back over to Harneet, and we can start going to some of the questions you may have asked.
Okay, thank you so much, Dave and Gerrit, for your time and thoughts on translating QoE into sales and business growth for WISPs. I think the data and examples you guys have shared today will be useful for our participants to go back to their office and evaluate if they're doing enough to keep their existing subscribers happy and stay longer, as this represents top dollars for them in the long term. So I'm going to open the Q&A section now. Please click on the Q&A tab, write in your question, and then we can ask them to the host right away. Okay. So my first question is to Gerrit. We have Mark here asking, when is QoE available for other bottlenecks?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mark. So it's We're actually actively testing it right now in our lab in a few networks already. And so the big first one we're doing is access points based shaping. Again, we're testing it out right now. I expect it to be in the next month or two. We'll have some beta customers at the end of July already on that.
Okay, so get it is saying about access point shaping. Good. Next question is from Jason. It's also for Get It. The question is, could we use Preseem to generate customer reports with dynamic attributes, that is customer data usage?
I wouldn't mind seeing a couple more specific examples you had in mind there. We have a lot of data in Preseem, obviously in the cloud, and we're always adding new reports and things like that. We are already counting all the bytes, for example, per subscriber through various integrations. We're pushing the data back into the billing systems now as well. So I'd like to hear your exact use case, I guess you're after, but we have a ton of data that we can do interesting reporting with.
Well, I have an answer for that too. Is like, because we use Radius to authenticate your subscribers, we're collecting all the usage data, and we break that down per subscriber. We list it as highest user to lowest user bandwidth-wise. We display it in the customer's online account manager, so they have access to it, and it can be printed on their invoices that go to them every month. So we can provide data usage for you.
Awesome.
There's one more question coming in. I think Gerrit can start answering that one. And then if Dave wants to add it, he can do that as well. The question is, with QoE, will the shapers set up with WISP be an issue? This is a question from Charles.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a great question. So with VISP, you're probably using the hotspot shapers. And so what generally happens is Preseem tends to either replace those or work in conjunction. Either one is fine, but if you want to keep your VISP shapers there as a backup, for example, you would just configure them a little bit higher, like add a megabit or two. But the idea is you want to make sure Preseem shapers under normal conditions are the main bottleneck, and it makes the decisions on what traffic to prioritize and what it doesn't. And so it's very easy to go into VISP and turn those off. Everything else remains the same. All the authentication, all the configuration, all that remains exactly the way you have it. Basically, Preseem takes over just that one function of it.
Okay,
and I don't know if you want to
he
add
answered
anything
it
to
pretty
that.
well. I don't really have anything to add to that.
Awesome. Any other question, guys? Thank you so much for joining in, everybody. We still have, let's say, a minute or two to go. If you have any more questions, please post them here. Okay, Jason is asking cost. Is that a question for both of you guys?
I imagine he's asking about Preseem.
Yeah, well, so we have all of our pricing online. You feel free to go to our website under product as a pricing page. To give you a rough idea, it's a per subscriber model. The first 2,500 are 50 cents per subscriber per month, and then there's volume discounts after that. Again, you can see it all online. Our hardware tends to be much more cost effective than many other solutions out there. We have appliances available. Again, you can see a price for that online as well. You can provide your own server. And again, they're fairly affordable, and beyond that, it's just a monthly subscription.
Awesome. Any more questions? Okay, no more questions. I just posted a WISP.net website link in the chat option, guys. If you have any more question on WISP.net, please visit WISP.net. It's easy to remember. You can also connect with Dave at bthomas@wisp.net. I also posted a link to book a meeting directly with Gerrit, and you can always go to preseem.com for more information. One more question is coming in, again from Jason, before we close the session. Preseem servers authenticate to in-home routers, ? That's from Jason to Gerrit.
Yeah, so Preseem stays out of the application loop entirely, so VISP handles all of that. But basically, VISP knows what IP addresses belong to what subscribers, and then through the API, Preseem learns all of that. So then it sees traffic for certain IP address go through, and it knows what subscriber that is associated with. And so that's both from a monitoring perspective and a bandwidth enforcement perspective as well. And so,
VISP will authenticate.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, go ahead. I mean, I was just going to say VISP would authenticate anything you want. So any device, if it's an in-home router, the CPE you hung on the house, their smartphone, we can authenticate any of them, any and all.
Yeah, and this
is any multiple.
Yeah, and this is why this integration works so well, because all the information goes into VISP. Preseem just uses it. There's almost no configuration required in Preseem at all. It's literally a few hours of your time to get everything up and running. And again, it's because everything is already in VISP. There's no point reinventing the wheel there.
Awesome. There's one question for me from Ernst. Will you upload this webinar for later reference? Yes, we will. The webinar will be emailed to you, a copy of the recording. We will also upload the webinar on preseem.com/webinars. We also have our other webinars there. So yes, you will get a copy of the webinars. Okay, I think with this, we should close the session. It was really a good one for me. Learned a lot. And importantly, great questions from the audience. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I will hand it over to Dave. I also want to thank, before I do that, Mary from WISP.net. She's really helpful for all the planning and conducting this webinar right now. And Dave, of course. So over to Dave and get it for the final send-off.
Just thanks for attending, you guys. It's been great to share information with you. Like if you need any more information or want to talk more, feel free to touch me up. It doesn't even have to be about the billing system. Happy to talk about just business.
Yeah, thank you as well, everyone. I hope you found this information useful. Again, go to our website. We have an online chat. You can book meetings with us, however we can help. Thanks again.